Hey, what's up everybody? I am Joshua.
And I'm Madison.
And we'd like to thank you so much for tuning into another one. So today we're going to be doing a blind YouTuber tag started by Kayla with a C. If you haven't checked out any of her videos, definitely check out her channel. She's doing amazing work, so good job, Kayla. So for this tag, we're going to be learning a little bit more about mine and Madison's perspectives on different statements or questions regarding blindness. I'm going to be reading off statements, and Madison and I are going to be answering on kind of like this 5-point scale. So we're going to say whether or not we agree, somewhat agree, if we're neutral, if we somewhat disagree, or if we disagree with the statement. We did another blind YouTuber tag where we talk more specifically about our conditions. If you want to check that out, we'll have that in the description below. Hit the like button down below if you haven't already. Please subscribe and let's get into it. All right, so question number 1. Being blind enhances my other senses.
I would say that I disagree. But to be fair, I don't really pay attention to how my other senses are impacted because I do have a fair amount of remaining vision, so I rely on that a ton. My sense of smell actually isn't that good, and I honestly have no idea why, but it's not even related to my visual impairment at all, so yeah, I would have to disagree.
Which is good for me because that means I could stink as much as I want. No, I'm just kidding. So for me, I would say disagree as well. I would say though that being blind has caused me to develop my senses a little bit more, or rely on my senses to have them be more developed. So it's not that my DNA says, oh, you're blind, so you're gonna have better hearing or better smell. Since I'm not able to see everything around me, I've had to develop those skills a lot better, so then, you know, they can make up for whatever my eyes are not picking up.
All right, and question number 2, I prefer to date other fellow blind people.
I'm neutral. If you asked me this question like 10 years ago, I would have probably said disagree. I think that was because I was in denial about my own vision. I was looking to date people who were sighted, but now I'm a lot more comfortable with my vision, and it is nice that me and Madison are both visually impaired because we're able to better understand what each other's going through to some degree. But I think in the broader sense, it doesn't matter if the person's sighted or if they're visually impaired. I think it's just about the person. So the level of vision doesn't really matter to me.
I would have to agree as well. I would be neutral, although I have had experience only dating people with visual impairments, hence Joshua. The main thing for me would be personality, as opposed to whether them being blind or sighted. It's not really that big of a deal to me, but I am fortunate enough to be dating Josh, and I think I made the right choice because we've been together for like 4 years, so something's going right. So question number 3, I am less shallow about my romantic partners.
I would say neutral because I do have some level of vision, and that's not to say that I only look at the person's looks, what they're wearing, if they put on makeup or whatever. I just like to know that the person can take care of themselves. They can look presentable when the time calls for it. I guess you could say they dress appropriately for the occasion. But of course, the underlying factors are important, if not more important, like their personality and their drive and their purpose in life. You want to associate yourself with the people that you feel meet your standards, and if that's personality wise or whether they can be presentable, everybody has their own categories. So in terms of shallow, I'd say neutral.
For my answer, I would have to say that I somewhat disagree, and the reason for this is because I don't consider myself to be a shallow person, but when it comes to pursuing a romantic relationship with someone, I would like them to, you know, care for themselves in terms of looking presentable, as Joshua had previously said. And I am the type of person who could look at someone and think, oh, okay, you're cute. It's not like I have a certain type or anything where someone needs to be blonde or someone needs to be taller than me. It's just an instinctive thing where I can look at someone and determine whether I think they're attractive or not. And I think that's an instinctive thing for anyone. Right, and now we're moving on to question 4. Unsolicited help makes things harder. We actually made a video on this topic on how the sighted community can be more helpful to people with blindness, and we'll link that down below and also put it in the end cards up above. In my opinion, I think that it could go both ways. So I would say it would be neutral for me, because unsolicited help can be nice depending on the way a person offers it. So if they're forceful in the way that they offer their help, it's gonna make me feel uncomfortable and would probably make me feel like things are harder than they need to be. Sometimes people are just so worried for you. They mean well, but it could be that they're offering help for some really simple task, like going down the stairs. And then other times when they actually see you struggling, other people will come up to you and actually offer their services by giving you really good directions or something of that nature. So it could happen either way. It just depends on how someone offers their help.
Yeah, and I agree. I would say that I'm neutral and similar. It depends on the situation. I think the best practice is just to ask the person if they need help, and if so, how you can be helpful. If they don't need help, then that's perfectly fine. You can go about your day, but in a lot of cases, I may not need help, but if there is a situation where it looks like I'm struggling, or if it's a life and death situation, like I'm about to walk in the middle of traffic, then that help can be useful.
Now we're moving on to the next question, number 5. The city that I live in is accessible for me.
I'm like in the middle of somewhat agree, because I don't feel like that's strong enough, but I wouldn't say 100% agree. So mostly agree, if that's an option, because San Jose, like many parts of the Bay Area, is pretty accessible. There are a lot of buses, there's light rail, we have BART that just came in, and some Amtrak stops. For the most part, it is accessible. There are some areas, I guess more in the suburb, in terms of the places I actually need to go. There's a lot of bus options. And if all else fails, I could get as close as I can and just call an Uber or Lyft. In terms of other accommodations, there have been restaurants that I've been to where people will offer me a large print or a braille menu. Some of the restaurants will also have their menus online. Most of the people I've encountered in terms of customer service at these different locations are helpful as well. Similar to transportation, there are some hiccups, but for the most part, it's accessible.
Well, in comparison, I would say that your city is way more accessible than mine. So I would have to strongly disagree, because I do live in a traditional suburban area, and while we do have transit, it is very unreliable, and they do offer door-to-door services like paratransit, and there's also Uber, thank the Lord. But I have to look actually to see if restaurants offer braille menus, or now that COVID is happening and people have to scan their menus on through QR codes, are those systems accessible? I would have to look into that. But in terms of transit, no. In terms of other things, yeah, I'll still strongly disagree, because I don't know that many blind people who live in my area. Number 6, the next question is, I am offended when the word blind is used as a descriptive characteristic of mine. I have actually never had anyone call me blind to my face. And it's really weird, because as someone who is more recently coming to terms with how I choose to deal with my blindness, I would probably have to say somewhat agree, and I'm being honest. Would I be okay with it if people call me blind? Yeah, probably, but like I said, it's easier said than done, and it's never happened, so I can't really tell. That's why I'm giving that answer, somewhat agree.
For me, I would say strongly disagree. If you would have asked me this, like I said, 10 years ago, I would have agreed. I'm a lot more comfortable with my vision, a lot more confident with my vision. So if someone, associates me or uses blind as a description of who I am, then yeah, that's what I am. Is it all of who I am? No. It is a big part of who I am. Now, it's another question if they have a negative stigma towards that association, like, oh, he's blind, he can't do this or that. If someone just simply says that I'm blind, then yeah, I'd say for the most part I am.
Next question, number 7. Being blind has affected my mental health.
I'd say that I somewhat agree. Since I was in denial of my vision, it was pretty disheartening and discouraging when I couldn't do the same things that my friends were able to do. Or there are times when I know that there's easier ways to complete a task, but because something is inaccessible or because, there's things that I'm missing visually, I'm not able to do it. It can be discouraging. However, I could say it positively impacted it also because it's forced me to look at different workarounds or find other options for completing tasks that help me to problem solve. There are times where it had been discouraging, but it's definitely helped me as I continued again to be more comfortable with who I am.
And I would have to agree for the same reasons that Jesh would. Growing up, I wouldn't say that it negatively impacted me mentally, but my parents always liked to be one step ahead. So they always told me to speak up, advocate, present your needs whenever you can so that you can be successful in life. And yes, that is definitely very true. As a kid, I took that very literally and I was very shy. I overthought what it would be like to socialize with other friends because I thought they would judge me and I'd have to think, oh, okay, what am I gonna say if they ask this? As I grew older, I realized, oh, that doesn't really need to be that big of a deal. And also, as I became older and came to terms with my blindness a lot more, and still am, I find that my mental health has definitely been impacted in a positive way. I think what I'm really good at is humility. I know that I'm able to fight for the things that I need, and also I'm humble enough to accept the obstacles that come along with that. Next question. I have experienced discrimination.
When it comes to discrimination, my approach is, okay, how can I use this as a way? And I know for a fact a lot of people will disagree with me, but I like to take the approach of, okay, how can I use this as an educational moment to where they can be more open-minded about blindness in the future. So I go into, more professional settings, not expecting that I'm going to be discriminated against, but being prepared in case that event happens. So then I can steer the conversation from how can't I do something because I'm blind and show off, the skills or my personality with my blindness. The different tools I can use to complete the job, my ability to interact with people, showing that my blindness is just a characteristic of myself and not a hindrance or an obstacle to me.
I would say the same thing. I would somewhat agree. As the world becomes more educated about the disability community and how to interact with people in our community as well as accommodate, it is going to be tough to break down those barriers, and there will be some people who will be ignorant about it, but it all boils down to the educational part of it and also the way you handle it. I feel like that's something to expect in life. It's inevitable. It is frustrating, but it also isn't that big of a deal. I mean, we move on, and in the end, they get a little education out of it, so it is what it is. Right, and the last and final question is definitely a nail biter for sure. If I could gain my sight with a cure, I would. For me, I would have to somewhat disagree. There are a couple of things that I would love to indulge myself in at least once in my lifetime if I could. Like, I would like to drive. I think that would be so cool. But it's not really a priority. And one thing is for sure is that I don't really view my life as black and white, where I think that having more sight is superior, if that makes sense. But also, to be fair, I'm also a person who has lived with my visual impairment my whole life, so I don't know anything else. One thing that I would love to correct, if it were possible, is my nystagmus. It is something that I have been self-conscious about for years and something that I'm still working on embracing, but I'll still live with it.
Of course, there are some things I would like to do. I would like to drive, fully get the visual experience of sports games, play a pickup game of basketball or football. That would be fun. I don't know, because I've been visually impaired my whole life. Like I said, I'm a lot more comfortable with who I am, with the different approaches I need to complete different tasks, whether it's travel or for work. I'm neutral right now. I don't know if I would or I wouldn't. Kind of leaning towards disagreeing. I guess I'm like in the middle of neutral and somewhat disagree because of my comfort level and my confidence level in my independence. If the question was, would I change it for a week? I would agree and then go back to being visually impaired. All right, that's fine. But in that week, just, all right, let me drive a car and not have one of my friends in the passenger seat ready to take the wheel, which he had to do. Go to all the baseball games, football games, basketball games I can. Yeah, those are our questions. This is more getting into our heads about our approaches to blindness. we have another video detailing our condition a bit more, which we'll link down below. We thank you for checking us out, checking out this video. If you stayed this long, again, hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribed, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks for watching. If you would like to learn more about blindness or would like to check out more of our videos, check out the links in the description down below. We'll see you in the next one.